Wait, we can't start yet. The What About podcast needs your help. We love that you're listening, but for us to grow, we also need your support. Please give us a like or a 5-star review on whatever platform you're connecting with us on. And don't forget to follow us on socials at the What About podcast. And away we go. From the papier-mâché replica of 1428 Elm Street to the group hypnosis held at Western Hills Psychiatric Hospital. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jason Burns.
And I'm Danny Nucci, and this is the What About podcast.
Danny, how are you going to spend my new favorite word, totality?
I am probably going to run over to Guitar Center and get a pedal. No. I am going to do that, but I'll probably get on the roof and put on my dark glasses and look.
You got the special glasses?
No, I don't have the special glasses. I'll just look to the side. I'll just look just off.
Yeah, for our listeners, we're recording this on the day of the full total solar eclipse, which feels kind of fitting because there's something kind of spooky about it. Yeah, it gets a little dark, a little good time to take a nap, be assaulted by Freddy in the middle of the night, middle of the day.
Middle of the day, a little Freddy nap. Is that what we're gonna call him now?
Yeah, Freddy nap.
Where you can have your nightmares, Jason. They can all come true.
Well, we're sitting down with a good friend of yours,
and Ira Heiden,
and then his co-star in the film, Heather Langenkamp. So tell us how you know Ira.
Oh, Ira and I were young actors in Hollywood back in the day, and this was like his big deal. And Rodney, who we talked about briefly, we were just friends. We hung out way back in the day, and we've known each other for however many years that is.
Did you meet doing like auditions? Is that the?
Yeah, I think we met, and then friend of a friend, and then we just became close, and we've been friends forever.
Was he one of the guys you used to zip around on Vespas with?
No, he was after the Vespas.
Okay.
That was after I was excommunicated from the Vespas.
Oh, no. All right.
Yeah, that's a whole other story, which we don't need to get into.
Okay, we'll get there eventually.
But yes, he's a wonderful guy, really great, the Wizard Master, and Heather Langenkamp, Ira Heiden. Without further ado, the Dream Warriors.
Holy smokes. Well, this is a special event. I want to thank you guys very much for interviewing me.
Ira, we like to start with that sort of thing.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, you're stealing my thunder. We haven't even welcomed Heather in.
Oh, hello, Heather.
Hello, Heather.
Hello. I was trying to do an Instagram this morning. Whoopsie. And
it's a learned skill, isn't it? It really is.
So hard. I'm so bad at it.
Thank you for joining us today, especially on Totality Day, Eclipse Day.
I know. We want to get this going because I want to start watching. Can I show you my viewer? Hold on. I just made it.
Oh, wow. There you go. Dream Warrior Princess herself.
See, I made my viewer out of a cereal box, and I'm just waiting to have it useful today.
Well, that's good.
Jason, where you are, you're going to be able to see it like really good, right?
Yeah, we're at 89% totality here. So that's
great.
I just like saying totality. It's such a strange little word.
That's what, because you've said it twice already.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Is that going to be a thing? Do I need to prepare myself?
It's definitely a thing.
Okay.
Well, before we get into Dream Warriors specifically, let's start where each of you were in your careers, in your lives, when this particular film came into your life. Obviously, Heather, you were familiar with the franchise. Just try to paint us a picture of where Heather, where Ira were, and how it all evolved into, meeting on the set that day.
Ladies first, Ira.
Well, let me tell you. Wait a second. No, that's you, Heather.
Wait, what year are we in when this happens? I have to be reminded.
It landed in 87, February.
So 86, September-ish.
Okay.
Wow, it's like she's preparing. It's like a whole thing. This is like an actor prepares right here.
I don't even remember any of it. Going back to my memory is like a really bad idea because.
Well, I guess the real question is, okay, so you'd already done a Nightmare on Elm Street. This came up. Where were you in your career? Like, do I want to keep doing horror?
Right. So I felt like I never worked again after I did Nightmare on Elm Street. I did a few things, but in general, all I remember is that when Wes Craven called me and said that he had written this script for a sequel to Nightmare on Elm Street, I was incredibly grateful. I I always put these milestones in my life. Like if I don't have a job by 25, I'm going to quit, and I always do this to myself, which is very destructive, just to give yourself these really artificial deadlines. But in my head at the time, I had some kind of a sense like if things don't pick up here pretty soon, I'm just going to have to, throw in the towel. And
by the way, I'm still doing that.
Yeah. And I still do it now. I'm like, when I'm 62, if I don't have a really good job, I'm going to give up. But, I never do totally give up. But when Wes called, it was definitely a real lifeline, I felt like, to my, my career at the time. And I was really flattered because I didn't really thought about Nightmare on Elm Street as this thing that was going to keep generating sequels. And I knew the second one had been popular, but it was really focused on the house being the genesis of Freddy was in the house. And so anybody who lived in the house was going to be haunted by Freddy. And so I thought that the producers had kind of decided just to keep that house on Elm Street as the place where Freddy existed. And then, of course, Wes comes up with this really great idea, and he let me know that I was part of it. And, he kind of was asking me, like, would you be willing to play this part again? And I said, yeah, of course. And I was super excited.
And I think, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, but Wes actually pitched this for the second one, but the studio didn't want anything to do with it. They wanted to go in a different direction.
I don't think that might be true, only because I know that Bob Shea and Wes Craven had a very difficult period of time after Nightmare on Elm Street came out, and I do not think that they would have asked him to, at that point. I don't think that might have happened, but I don't know. I mean, if you've heard stories, but my understanding was that Bob Shea gave him the opportunity to write this script. And the fact that he didn't let him direct it kind of tells you everything about their relationship at the time.
Okay, so I had seen the first Nightmare when I was living in Tampa, Florida, and scared the hell out of me. Cut to me coming to Los Angeles. My mom was working for the clothing company Members Only. Do you remember those jackets?
Oh, God, yes.
Sure, they had those members only jackets.
Oh, my God. Can I have one of those jackets?
So they were sponsoring a tennis tournament. It was John McEnroe versus Jimmy Connors. And Jerry Buss was having a pre-party at his house at the Jerry Buss mansion. And I got invited to go. And I was so excited. I got to...
Hold on. How did you get invited to go, Ira? That's what I want to know.
He had the members only jacket.
I went with my mom. That's how I got to go.
Oh, because your mom got it. Okay, your mom got invited.
I was
sure, hence the members. I got it.
There you go.
Can't get nothing by me. Go on.
So I was just being myself, which Danny is crazy, Ira. And this woman goes, "Hey, do you ever think about getting into acting out here?" And I was like, "I'd love to." So I met my manager at Jerry Buss's mansion, Marilyn Sherman, who founded Jimmy Smits, Forrest Whitaker, Bill Allen, a bunch of people, and Ira Heiden.
And Ira Heiden, of course.
So she said, "Let's start auditioning." And I said, okay. And I packed my bags in Tampa, moved all my stuff out here to Los Angeles, and started auditioning. And I swear I want to think that I actually met you, Danny, at the audition with Rodney. Like,
you know what? It's possible.
You might have driven him there or something, but
yeah, that's possible.
But I had 4 auditions and then 2 callbacks, and I finally landed the job.
So how far in was this, Ike? Like, how many auditions had you gone in at this point?
For that movie, I had 4 auditions.
No, I mean, like, how long have you been on? Because you moved out here, you're like, you're picking up the scripts at the casting directors. You're going home, you're reading them, you're going back with your sides. How many of these did you do?
This was probably about my 5th audition.
Oh, that's not bad, Ike.
No, and I thought, oh my God, it's going to last forever. This is it.
So as young actors at this time in your careers in Hollywood, what was the general vibe when it came to working in horror film? I mean, obviously, Scream came along many years later, and all of a sudden, everybody was doing horror, but it had a different vibe back then.
It was very discouraged to get like too well known in horror. I mean, there weren't that many horror movies, so they weren't the kind of all. Today there's just dozens and dozens of horror movies always being made, but back then it wasn't that common, and my manager and my agents were all like really negative about it. Like, ugh. Didn't
it have kind of like if you're doing horror, it's like if you're doing soap operas. That's all you can do.
It's your stigma. You're stigmatized. Yeah, you're stigmatized from
you're stigmatized as that kind of actor. actor.
But that's kind of how Hollywood was back then, right? Because even sitcoms had that vibe back then, TV in general.
Well, and no movie star would be in a TV show either. And no, any TV star couldn't get into a feature world. It was so segregated, and especially soap opera stars. I mean, they are great examples. Like, everything was so compartmentalized that if you wanted to be in feature films, you really, your agents were telling you everything that you should and shouldn't do, and they wouldn't send you in for certain things if they didn't want you to be on a soap. So it did seem like very limiting at the time.
And I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with the industry don't realize that, because especially for the younger generation, like my kids today, will watch a movie star do a TV show, do a video game voice, do a commercial. It's everything now.
Which is better.
It's changed. It's all something else now, Jason. It's evolved into something else.
So what about personally for you two? Was it something you mentioned, Heather, it's sort of being a godsend that Wes called again at that point? Like, was horror something that you were interested in particular?
Not at all. I mean, I really wanted to be like in John Hughes's next teen flick. I really wanted to be in like the big Hollywood movies and TV movies. And, Helen Hunt was someone that I always like, dang, why can't I get her parts? Or Daphne Zuniga, like all these gals that I would be in the auditioning room all the time, in the waiting room. And I always felt like I just wish I could just get those parts. Mary Catherine Stewart, I remember just being so mad I didn't get Night of the Comet. And, instead I was going to do Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I always felt like, I was missing out on like the really great roles. And then ironically, of course, this is the role of the 80s and the role of the century, maybe for women, is this role of Nancy Thompson. So what do you know when you're a kid? You don't know anything. And
you question everything that you do and don't do.
You're so biased by the people that are surrounding you. You want to be cool, but I was from Oklahoma, so it was really hard to have friends who were in the industry. I felt very on the outside all the time and wanting to go to the cool parties. But at the time, I just was patient with it. And, I did get married very young, I think as kind of an antidote to feeling so on the outside of everything that was happening in Hollywood. I just really felt like I just need to form some kind of a community that I can feel really vital and important. And that, as an actor, you just often struggle with feeling so, you just have a lot of self-doubt and you wonder why you're not getting parts. And sometimes I'd blame my curly hair, like I would just blame anything and everything. And so Wes was the one person in the industry who seemed to have this real belief in me and really loved what I had brought to the role of Nancy. And so when he called and asked me to be in Nightmare 3, I realized, like, he's my person. He's the person that will, make or break me in this industry. And I really, I've always thought that Wes Craven was the person that helped me become who I am.
Yeah, well, you're trying to define yourself as an actor, right? You're like, this is who I am. No, this is who I am. No, this is who I am. Anything that will bring about any kind of certainty. Ira, did you all of a sudden, once you had booked Nightmare, and obviously it was a prestigious project at that time because the franchise was doing well, did you just get all kinds of like, will you be in this horror movie and this horror movie? How did it work in terms of what the opportunities that presented themselves?
So the opportunity that came right while I actually was working on Nightmare was to play Rob Lowe's brother in a movie called Illegally Yours.
Sure.
That Peter Bogdanovich was directing. I hadn't done any real research. I just knew that Peter was a big deal and Rob Lowe. I mean, everybody knows Rob, especially back then. He was awesome. And to get to play his brother, I was super stoked. And so that opportunity presented itself and it had a couple auditions and callbacks. And I'll never forget being on the set at the VA hospital and checking my beeper, my pager, saying that I got
beeper. Wow.
Yeah, that's how it was, Jason. There was no cell phone. You checked your beeper. That's what you did.
My manager had called me. So I went to the telephone, put in my 25 cents, called and said, "Kid, we got the news, got some good news. You got the job." So that was pretty awesome to get to go.
That was it. You were on your way, Ike.
Yeah. And I figured this is everything. You know, the one thing about this movie that I have to say, Nightmare, we all bonded together and we all helped each other with our roles. And it was an incredible, secure feeling. We've still stayed friends to this day. We get to do these horror conventions and see each other, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Well, Heather, you kind of touched on this. Can you paint a picture what it's like to suddenly have this notoriety, and then you're a young person, your peers are still a big part of who you are and who you want to be in life? Is it alienating from the non-industry people that were in your life to suddenly go from, you know, a somebody who wants to be an actress to somebody who is an actress and succeeding?
I've really strived my whole life never to portray myself as an actor who would be unapproachable or somebody who wouldn't return someone's phone call, or especially a dear friend. I had a few friends perhaps who felt that I was now operating in this different world, and that was sad.
Well, you were operating in a different world.
Operating in it like this, like movie star Hollywood world, but it was more there. Like, it was pretty much, I felt they were kind of imagining it because I couldn't really see the proof of it, but it didn't happen to that many people around me. I wish I was more notoriety. The notoriety was just so weird because I actually became more recognizable when I did the television series, Just the 10 of Us. And we were in TV Guide, and we, it was an every Friday night show. And
was that part of the TGIF lineup? That was
that was a TGIF show. Yeah. And so
where'd you pull that one out of, Jason?
Because I watched a lot of TGIF.
Wow, that's really good.
Really good. If you knew TGIF, no, so many kids watched Friday nights on ABC. It was really huge, and yet, even so, our show got canceled after 2 years, which was like really heartbreaking because it was a very popular show. And when Bob Iger became the new president of ABC, our show was like one of the first shows he canceled. He obviously didn't like our show, or he didn't like our producers. Of course, they were attached to Growing Pains, and that was such a big, big deal on their network. But it was just really mystifying because it seemed like everybody really liked our show.
Did you notice that, like, you were perceived from the outside or from friends as this sort of big deal movie star, but really on the inside you're going, I need another gig. Where's the next gig coming from?
Yeah, I was always out of work. I mean, I've been out of work way more than I've been in work. And right after I did Nightmare 3, then I got married and I had a baby. And, it's really hard to get hired when you are a young mother. You're just not this sexy young thing anymore. And a lot of producers are like, they want single girls to be in their shows if they're playing young women.
I don't think that's true anymore, Heather. I mean, I think certainly things have changed dramatically in terms of that, but I don't think that's the case now. I mean, I think back then it was.
There was a real, I even remember like a head of one of the networks that I'd worked for a lot, or, he was a very prominent producer. Right after I got engaged, I was having a meeting at network for some show. And I got in the elevator, and he was in the elevator, and he's like, "Oh, you're getting married, like now you're out of the business." And I was just like, "Wow!" And it really occurred to me that's going to be a sacrifice. Yeah.
So Ira, you moved from Tampa to LA, and then shortly after started working, right? So
working in film, Jason, that's a big deal.
But you probably were still establishing your peer base in LA at that point, right?
So, I started working in film, but it didn't just stop there. I did commercials as well. I reunited with Heather on Just the 10 of Us. We did get to work together again. Family.
And wasn't the other actress on Just the 10 of Us, and I'm drawing a blank, was in a future Nightmare, right?
Brooke Thies. And, Joanne Willette was also in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
Can you explain the connection there, Ira?
Yep. And so, I got to work on Family Ties. Harry Gold was my agent, so I auditioned 5 times for Growing Pains, but never got the job.
Tracy Gold was an actress on Growing Pains, so having your agent being her dad and it's still not turning into a role was very frustrating. I, on the other hand, had the same agent, Harry Gold, and I actually was on Growing Pains. Is that what it is? Did I get your role of Scooter, the burger manager? Yeah, it was me.
You bastard.
But that's hilarious.
You owe me, kid. You owe me.
You got it, kid.
Who also, who is, remember Boner, who was on that? Jason Going?
Yeah. Boner Stabone, yeah.
Yeah, I knew him as Josh. I went to high school with him, Josh Koenig.
Unfortunately, passed away a couple years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad. Yeah,
Josh.
I think he went with Andrew then.
Andrew. That's right.
But yeah, I knew him as Josh, yeah.
What about Dream Warriors?
So let's go to, you're getting the scripts for Dream Warriors. Did you have reservations about the tone? Because the first Nightmare was straight horror, and yet Freddy sort of steps out of the shadows a bit here and becomes more of a character than a boogeyman. I mean, did you view that positively as a good change for the franchise at the time?
I thought this story was so good. Most horror movies don't have such great, characters in them. I didn't realize that Wes was going to make basically as great a movie as Nightmare 1 in terms of the scripts and the teenage relationships and the seriousness of their problems, because it's very rare that a horror movie will actually go into a world that's already so troubled, like all these troubled kids, and actually explain their troubles through Freddy. So I thought it was genius, because in Nightmare 1, we're very troubled teenagers too, because, technically we're all like victims of divorce and really broken, weird families. And we all are kind of just friends who have been, we're just in a new world of family dynamics. And I think Wes really wanted to portray that, like how kids are being left behind in this revolution of divorce that was really taking over the world, and these parents who are so dysfunctional and terrible. And that was kind of the setting of the Nightmare 1. But so the setting of Nightmare 2 is that it's kind of gone one step further. And now, all these kids have been so, tortured by Freddy and their nightmares that they've tried to commit suicide in these ways. And we realize that it's Freddy.
Was there a table read? Did you guys start with a table read, or did you all?
We sure did, Danny.
What was that like? Were you nervous, Ike?
It was awesome. It was really cool because we gathered in Westwood on a Sunday. We had brunch together. And then we went to Chuck Russell's friend. I don't know if it was Frank Darabont's flat, but we went to somebody's place and we sat down and we all read together. And that was our first time like bonding and banding together.
Did we read through the whole script?
We went through the whole script.
Didn't we also get like a lot of literature about dreams and stuff there? Didn't they give us all these things to read?
I don't remember. I do remember getting the wheelchair and practicing in Westwood before the shoot with my great friend Harold Pruitt, may he rest in peace. And he was wheeling me around and boy, the looks, I learned a lot for that role by the looks I got from people. It was either like, oh, let me get the door for you. Let me get that. Or it was just like, they would shun away and not even look at me. But yeah, we did have that reading and it was in Westwood and I thought it was super cool. And
did you know Rodney or did you know Bradley at all or Patricia?
So I know I met everybody at the audition. Well, that was the first time I think I met Patricia and you, Heather. But I met Bradley because I came from one of the auditions and I met him at Sushi on Sunset. And I said, dude, you've got to audition for this role. You've got to go for it. And he said, all right. So we talked to his manager and he got into audition. And that's how I got to hang out more with Bradley.
Wow, that's so great.
Rodney, I just met at the auditions. So that was cool. And then Ken Sagos, of course. And Jennifer Rubin, Penelope, Sudro.
And Lawrence Fishburne, which I think a lot of people don't even realize that he was in this movie. People see it as kids and then they go back and revisit it and they're like, oh my God, Lawrence Fishburne.
He was in a bigger movie before that. What was it? Oh, Apocalypse Now. Yeah, that's right.
Small little film.
But he also was on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
That's right.
And so that's
right.
I loved him on that show so much. And he is a really great guy. So
all right, so cut to the film opens. It's a huge success. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is a blockbuster horror film. Heather, what was your initial sort of experience in being in a hit? And then Ira.
I thought it was only 27 million.
It was like something like 45 million, which was kind of unheard of then.
I think it made 12.5 the first weekend it opened, which passed Some Kind of Wonderful.
Eric Stoltz and Mary Stuart Masterson.
I'm seeing it made 44.8 million domestically with a 4 million budget.
That's a nice return.
Exactly. And so it built from there, though, right, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've always heard that the box office of Nightmare 4 was the biggest box office of all the shows. I've never heard that Nightmare 3 was like considered a huge blockbuster, but where did we see it, Ira? Did we have a premiere?
So there was a premiere, Heather, and I, unfortunately, high class problems, was shooting Illegally Yours in St. Augustine, Florida. So I couldn't be there.
So where was it? I wonder where it was, Ira. Was it at the Chinese?
It was at the Chinese. Rodney went, Ken went, I'm sure Jennifer Rubin went. Where were you?
I don't think I went. I don't remember it. I don't think I went.
So I want to, just because I've worked with him, anyone can take the question. What was your first impression and then your continued impression of working with Chuck?
I mean, I thought he did a really good job. I mean,
oh, it's terrific. The film is terrific.
He had great ideas, and he and Frank. Oh no, it was Bruce Wagner and Frank Darabont had rewritten it, right, Ira?
Right.
So they had taken Wes's script and rewritten some of the elements of it. And I wish I could remember how they were different, but the script that Frank Darabont and Bruce Wagner wrote was, maybe it was just a little simpler. Maybe there was less, and maybe some of the kills were a little bit more Freddy-ish, like more crazy. I wish I had those two scripts side by side. I probably might have them. But I usually would get Wes's first draft, and then by the time it was rewritten for the shooting schedule, there were some things that were simplified and sets that were removed, for cost's sake, and things that needed to be streamlined. But I think the love relationship between Heather and between Nancy and the doctor played by Craig Wasson, I think that was augmented in the second script where it wasn't really there in Wes's script. And then we just kind of stripped it out again because I just thought it wasn't necessary or really believable that she was going to embark on this love relationship with this guy who, and these kids are in all this trauma, and there's just so much intensity. No, you don't start, falling in love at that moment. That's not when you start falling in love with people. So I just felt like it was so something intense. I wasn't capable of managing as an actor. I don't know. I just didn't want to do that. And
yeah, because it reads more like a little bit like of a mentor relationship now. Exactly.
And I was really young. I was only 23 and a half or 24. He is in his 30s, and it was creepy. I don't know.
Creepy? It's common. What are we talking about?
I thought it was, but anyway, I think that they wanted to have a love relationship in there, but that's how Hollywood was. It's if you're a girl, you have to be the object of someone's affection, or else you have no meaning in the movie unless you're somebody's love interest. And I have to say, one of the reasons I think Nightmare on Elm Street is so successful is that there's really not that much of that in at least the nightmares I was in. There's no side love interests,
It's got strong female character. The Patricia Arquette character is very strong.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean women don't fall in love if they're strong. It just means that.
Oh, I know. I married one. Oh, I know. Oh, I'm very clear.
Hi, Paula.
But there was just this thought, every story has to have some love story or gratuitous sex or gratuitous love interest just to keep people happy, which I think Wes really proved that you don't need that to make people enjoy your horror movie. You don't have to. And in fact, watching Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1, I just watched it on Saturday on the big screen. Actually, Wes is toying with us so much about our expectations for sexuality in his movie. So you do have Tina and Rod, having sex in the bedroom. And and there's nothing shown. It's they just, their sheets are up to their neck, and they're having this cutesy dialogue, and then she gets, ripped apart. And then you see me like take off my shirt at one point, and like the only thing you're going to get is my back, you know. And it was like Wes's joke, like, nope, you're not going to get that in this movie. Sorry, folks, you know. And there were some in Nightmare 3 too, I just found it so charming because even though these teenagers could have like had some really, you know, cute little love meet kind of things, there is none of that.
No, and they were just all there for each other. That's what makes it so cool and interesting, is that they had each other's backs.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to ask, what was the hardest day, each one of you, what was the hardest day on the set? Because, I mean, doing a horror movie, you know, some of those sequences take a long time. And, I mean, obviously, like Patricia Arquette, when she's getting eaten by that's a slimy day. That's a slimy, long day.
For sure.
So, for each of you, what was the hardest day on the set?
For me, for sure, the hardest part was my death scene. So I'm brand new at this, and I'm trying to really feel the death. I'm going to die. I'm trying to like really, really get the emotions as an actor.
I'm trying to feel the death.
And
Heather said she was 23. How old were you at the time?
I was 20. And Robert is right next to me, Robert Englund, and he's cracking jokes. And he is not making it easy for me. So that was the number one hard part. The number two hard part was the actual...
So you're literally trying to go, I'm an actor and I need to focus, and Robert Englund is throwing out one-liners?
Yeah, and telling me how he just bought a house in Laguna Beach and he's got a convertible Mustang. I'm like, no, I need to really encompass death right now. So then they get me up on the harness and they're getting ready to have Robert kill me, but his gloves, they were retractable, but one of the blades wasn't retracting.
That's frightening.
So they had to put a 2x4 over my heart, and Robert had to hit his mark. That was the scariest part.
Oh, that's nothing, Ira.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
That's not.
Oh my God. All the nightmares I've had about that claw, like scratching my face off, and yeah.
It was real acting at that point.
And Heather, what about you? What was the hardest day on 3?
I think my death day too was really hard, and because I knew that Nancy was dying and it was going to be a really big deal for a lot of people, and it was such a diabolical setup with, you know, my dad floating in as a ghost, and I knew that he had tried to kill Freddy, and so I had all these, you know, thoughts. But that day, that room that we shot in was really intense. It had all these exploding mirrors. It was, you know, strewn with crap, and then again, it, you know, it has to be choreographed, and yeah, Freddy has his claws, and I mean, funny aside, I don't know. Usually they provide you like an entire outfit to wear when you're going to die or have blood, including undergarments, and everything is provided by production so that when you get all disgusting, none of it is your wardrobe, right? But for some reason, I had just happened to wear like a brand new bra that I just bought. I was like so excited about it.
Good forethought, Heather.
And then I just forget that it's going to be covered in this blood. And so, oh gosh, only women will really identify with that. Like, you go out of the trouble to go out and go shopping for some, you know, nice underwear. And then of course, Freddy destroys it with the blood, you know, jetting out of everything. So, but that, you know, Robert Englund choreographed a lot of those scenes. I don't know if he did with you, Ira, but he always would tell the director, whether it was
apparently not. He was telling Ira of all the success he was having.
That was off the set, though.
Yeah, I mean, Robert is like controlling a lot of those death scenes because he knows what's going to look good with that glove, and he knows what's going to look good.
He's so great.
So he and Chuck probably had a lot of discussions about exactly that angle. It was really hard shot to get to make it look great. And he's coming up from behind me, stabbing me from behind. And then, oh no, first I stab him and then he stabs me. I don't know. It was like a whole thing. I have to watch it again.
I just rewatched it on Saturday. And what's funny, so Ira emailed me and I let him know. And I said, he said, whatever you do, don't fall asleep. I'm watching it in bed with my wife, and she actually fell asleep. And at this one moment where things were getting intense, our cat jumped on the bed, and she exploded. and so I was like, I told you, Ira said, don't go to sleep. But it's now on Netflix, and I would imagine like this film rediscovered its success over and over again thanks to video, and then on demand and cable. Do you think that is part of its legacy? Is people, because I know for me, I discovered it on HBO as a kid and probably watched it every Tuesday or Thursday night whenever it was on.
No, I think if there hadn't been VCRs invented, and if then DVDs didn't come out and reissue everything on DVDs, and now everything's being reissued in 4K. Everything's being reissued all the time, giving people a new opportunity to see it in more and more high definition and better sound than it was when we did it, frankly. Yeah, they're gorgeous. And now it's a culture of its own. Like, I mean, if you're a kid who doesn't know Nightmare on Elm Street or one of the other franchises as a annual tradition that you do with your friends or your family, those are the kids that I'm meeting all the time. And I'm realizing like their numbers are growing and growing and growing every year. There's millions of people like that now.
Tell me about those, Ira. So you guys go there, and there's just Nightmare on Elm Street freaks, right? People this is like, they love it. It's their favorite thing in the whole world.
The fan base is amazing. I mean, when we get to go to these conventions, how many of them, and the younger ones.
They're like, that's the guy with the 2x4 in his shirt.
Yeah. Like we were just in Chicago, right, for Days of the Dead. And they just come out of the woodworks, and it's amazing. You get you get the nicest people in the whole wide world. You get also the ones that are super scared and are really nervous to talk to you because
they don't realize that you're the nicest human being on the planet, Ira. They think you're just movie star wizard master. Is that what it is?
Exactly. There's something I always do at these conventions, and it's the little kids that are sitting there at our table and looking around. I always write. I sign them an autograph. I am the wizard master. Whatever you do, follow your dreams, stay in school. And I think that kind of puts it in perspective. And I make them repeat it to me also. And I think it's also part of what's keeping our thing alive. It's amazing.
Well, my wife just went. She did one because she was in Hellraiser 3. She was in Hellraiser 3, so she just did one in Atlanta, and she said they're just crazy about Hellraiser as well.
I mean, if any of your listeners have not been to one of the horror movie conventions that is, and every city now almost has one. Every major city has one at least once a year. It's a place where, like, a lot of times people who see horror, they never mention it at work or anything that they do this. I mean, they don't watch horror with like their colleagues at work. Oh my gosh, the tribe is they're so happy to be with each other. And I meet people who are accountants or they drive for Amazon, or like so many walks of life are joining together in these hotel ballrooms and all wearing black t-shirts with their favorite franchise on them. And they can be incognito, but yet celebrate this thing that they
love.
Yeah, when they leave, you know that they're getting back into their button-down shirt and they're getting in their Lexus and driving away, or they're getting into their pickup and driving away, or they're getting into their, their electric car. It's like everyone is from such a different walk of life. And I really appreciate that. And
what's fun is our listener question is from a huge fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, who also happens to be the creator of the television show Curses. And so he wanted to ask you guys this question. He's a lifelong fan of the show, and he wants to ask.
And Robert stars in Curses as well, so that's part of it.
Robert stars in Curses as well. His name is Jeff Dixon. We've had him on the show, and his question is: can you give us your best memory of working with Robert Englund, whether it was pertaining to shooting or just some kind of off-the-cuff story about him that happened during filming? I already gave us a little bit. Can you give us some more?
I think that was actually my greatest moment with Robert, was, also just watching him and how he works with the actors, and he's so smart and he's so brilliant. And
he loves horror too, right? He just loves it.
Yes, he does. I'm telling you, if you sit in a room with him, he can go on and on. He's got so many amazing stories. So getting to watch Robert work and grow up and becoming like friends now and seeing him, he's an amazing person.
Yeah, I'd have to say that in Nightmare on Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is the 7th one, I had a chance to have this really epic battle with Freddy in his giant like underground lair that was so magnificent. Like one of the best sets I've ever been on in my life. And Cynthia Charette, I think, was the designer. But anyhow, Wes had decided that we were going to have this epic battle. And he had this scene where he had these eels. And he has eels in like every movie that I'm in. I don't know why. But anyway, the eels were like on the ground. And I got to pick up this eel and just like jab it in his eye. And then and then he's like struggling with the eel in his eye, and then I take this huge candelabra and I just like swing it at him and I just say, "Fuck you." It was just the best moment it was so cathartic. I just felt like for 10 years I had been working with Robert Englund, and for 10 years, I just had felt like I never really got him. Like I never had a chance to actually get him. And in that scene, I really felt like we were having the best battle, and our battles are my favorite parts of the movie. Whenever we were fighting, I was probably the happiest camper. I just love fighting on set with Robert because he always had such great ideas, and they didn't ever look like, they were equally matched for some reason, even though he's so strong and he was, obviously much bigger than me. He and I had these really great fights, and so those are my favorite.
Well, in 3, he has this moment where he spots you for the first time and he says you, and you could tell he's kind of nervous about it. Like he plays it in a way that says, "Oh shit, I got to go against Nancy again."
Oh shit, it's you. Yeah, exactly. And it's fun. There's just not that many opportunities to be a fighter like that unless you're in a martial arts movie, or a battling of war movie or something like that. But it was fun. It was really fun.
So going to the conventions, talking to fans, what do you think it is that, based on what you hear, why people consider 3 to be one of the best of the franchise?
I mean, it's people it's Ira. I mean, all those people and Rodney
it's
and
Ira.
Jennifer.
That's what I think. I think it's Ira.
I think it's Ira.
I think it's me.
Because they were so vulnerable. They were so lovable, and you could relate to them so much. They didn't have that, and this is I really feel like in Hollywood right now, it's such an epidemic of like the cutesy, ironic, and cynical banter that every young person apparently is like really good at. And they're always like walking through the woods and they have this banter that's just like, I get it. And because it's supposed to be realistic, but at the end of the day, in a horror movie, to me, it never works.
If it's realistic, they'd be texting each other.
Exactly.
Go on,
now, that's the next thing, is they're all going to be texting. But the conversation that you see these kids having is actually about the thing that's killing them. And like, they are worried about their lives. And granted, I mean, a lot of movies start out on a footing where nobody's worried about their lives yet. And so, and they become worried, as the danger pursues them. But their vulnerability was so, I think every teenager feels so vulnerable. I mean, that's the thing that I've learned about having teenagers, is that all the tattoos or all the video games or everything that kids are doing, to me, is just a way to put an armor up against the vulnerability that they actually are feeling every moment of their lives. They're just, how scary.
They're trying to protect themselves.
And so everything is a way to get distracted from how scared you are. And yet all these characters were able to show how scared they were, but then they also could find this way to be strong. And it's for every teenager that I know who watches this movie, that is the lesson for them, is that the fear that permeates every aspect of a teenager's life is manageable in this way, where you fight and face your fear, and you band together and you find allies, and you're there for each other. And those kinds of those messages, I just think, are rare. They're too rare.
That's huge.
What have you heard a lot of, Ira, when people come to you and go, "Oh, Dream Warriors is my favorite"? I mean, I like all the nightmares, but Dream Warriors is my favorite.
I get a lot of, your movie helped me get through my fears. Your movie made me have better friendships, because in that movie we were all together, and we had to fight this big fear together as a team, the Dream Warriors. We were together. I worked on a commercial once, and there was a guy that was in a PA, and he kept kind of looking at me and running away. And then he said, he came up to me and said, "You were in Nightmare 3." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That was one of my favorite movies, but I just want to let you know that you helped me conquer a fear and get over a phobia." And to hear that is pretty amazing.
Well, it's also, and I guess you guys can speak to this because you've worked a lot. There's something about cast chemistry that you can't. It's very specific, and you can see it in this movie. You can feel it. Obviously, a lot of you guys are still friends, but the cast chemistry in this film, you can really, really sense.
Absolutely.
And I know it's real because I happen to have some insight about it. But it comes through.
And I think also it's because of Chuck Russell, I believe. Hey, look, he hired us. And to get to work with Chuck for the very first time, that was my very first film. I looked at him like a father figure, and the way he brought us all together, and in the cast.
Well, my experience was he just loves what he's doing. I mean, there's not many people that love directing as much as Chuck. I mean, he loved it. He loved doing it. He loved all the little nuances. He loved doing, a scene. I did a scene with him and Arnold where we walked up a flight of like an airplane, and literally we did it 112 times. I swear to God, he just wanted to find the right thing that worked right with him. And I was like, wow, Chuck, you're like, you think people want to go home. No,
the environment, that is super frustrating. Actually, because I find that
you got blood. You keep getting the blood on you, of course.
Yeah, because you're doing really technical things usually, and I mean, I know that we did a lot of takes on some things, and especially like I remember Jennifer Rubin's death scene. I remember like it wasn't working very well, and they had to keep doing takes. And I remember, and then once you get Robert just giving lines like randomly, like to make them funnier and funnier and funnier, like different death lines, and he would just come up with really evil, terrible ones. And, the camera would just be rolling. As the actor at the other end of that can be really trying. It's just like, pick one.
And this was Chuck's first movie,
I'm like,
right?
covered in this shit, let's get out of here. So.
Yes, it was Chuck.
It was Chuck's first film, right? Yeah.
And as a fan first, because I fell in love with the franchise around this time, I remember the poster, how powerful the poster was to the marketing of it, because and Freddy's one-liners sort of started to appeal to a younger generation, and then my generation got on board, and suddenly everything was licensed. We could get the little squeeze balls, the toy, everything was licensed all of a sudden to appeal towards a younger audience.
You guys haven't even touched on the soundtrack. I mean,
Dokken, man.
Yeah. I mean, that was amazing. I remember listening to Dokken in Florida, and then I came and I'm on the set. And Nikki Marvin was our supervising producer, and she's like, "We're either going to go with Marillion or Dokken." I was like, "Are you kidding me? You got to go Dokken."
Hey, I love Marillion. Don't get me wrong.
Well, Rodney's like, we got to have Marillion.
Like, guess who turned me on to Marillion?
Rodney.
We just talked to John Ondrasik, who's Five for Fighting, and his vocal coach was the lead singer of Dokken. So everything ties back
to that's a small world.
Yep.
That is, man. Heather and I got to do an amazing reading. We pulled the cast together and we raised, what did we raise? Like $20,000 for mental health at the Dee Dee Hirsch Foundation.
Suicide Prevention Hotline, which is so perfect for Nightmare 3.
How perfect.
It's a really important resource. And even now more so. I mean, we didn't even know because it was pre-pandemic.
It was totally
pre-pandemic, so we had no idea how
4 months before
for teenagers was going to actually become, unfortunately, like such a crucial issue in America. And I kind of want to do it again, Ira, because they could totally use our help. And
we got to do a bigger venue though, because it was at the Whiskey A Go-Go, which was pretty amazing. But yeah, and to continue to raise
your old stomping ground, Ira.
Yes, you remember that place.
I do, sure. I may have spent some drunken nights with you at the Whiskey A Go-Go, Ike.
Maybe. Yeah.
He doesn't remember.
Well, Heather, before we go, Ira also mentioned that you are big about, saving pets, saving animals. So I did want to mention that. We always bring up dogs here because I'm a lover of animals and dogs. Talk a little bit about your love for animals.
I'm just a regular animal lover. I mean, I love my animals, and of course, I did a Yorkie-thon last year to raise money with oh God, spacing on Yorkie-thon right now.
Listen, don't fret. You remembered names I could not even begin to fathom how you remembered them.
No, I was just thinking about it. I know we raised money for Yorkies, but anybody who ever asked me to help them with their animal organization, of course I will. But I mean, I'm from Oklahoma, so we had cows and horses and, pigs and goats. And so I'm undiscriminating in my love of animals. I love pigs a lot. But I have a lifestyle now where I don't really have anything but 2 dogs. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, just 2. Did you hear that, Jason?
The dogs.
Just 2 dogs. Did you hear that, Jay?
I'll work towards 2 eventually.
The dogs
Gotta
are
work
amazing.
down.
Ira loves dogs.
I have a wonderful dog walking business still to this
I
day.
know. I'm so
know?
envious.
Amazing.
He gets to take dogs on walks every day.
That's
First of all,
correct.
he is the dog master. This guy, big dog, small dog, doesn't matter. This guy just can whip around with a number of dogs. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. It's amazing.
Whenever I have a dog question, I always call Ira. I always know he'll have a good answer.
And I'd like to give a shout out to Paul Abdul's dogs, Nemo, Batman,
Name dropping.
and Penny.
I'd like to give a shout out
Straight up to those dogs.
Abdul's
I'm going to
dogs.
see them in about 35 minutes. So
Amazing.
Outstanding.
Heather, Ira, Paula Abdul's dogs. Thank you.
Thank you all.
You guys have a great
Thank you,
day.
Heather.
And
absolutely.
Ira, can't wait to see you
Yeah.
next time, wherever we go. Can't wait.
Spooky Empire.
Oh, yes.
August.
Yeah, you guys try to get out to some of these shows. You'll be amazed at how much fun you will have. And and all of us are available. We talk about what you want to talk about and bring, the stories of our life that are so, we're so lucky to be in these parts. We're so.
And we do photo ops, and and every time we do the photo op, we yell a line from Nightmare 3, which is hysterical.
Then we'll say,
And we make-
they'll snap the photo and then we'll say, "What a rush!"
What a rush.
My favorite line from Nightmare 3, and I can remember it because I just watched it, was, "He is the bastard son of 100 maniacs." And I thought, that's not how conception works.
I just love how into they are these the horror conventions. I mean, they just love it. And you know what? If you've been to one, which I have, they're kind of amazing. It really does feel like a community of people that are passionate.
Well, and because I've been doing comic conventions for so long because of my career, they're very similar. And you just see the like-minded people come together and feel comfortable in a place where maybe they don't always feel comfortable.
Yeah, and they speak the same language. They speak the Dream Warrior language, which is kind of great.
Which I speak the language. Like I said, I went back and watched it again. It really does hold up. Obviously, some special effects are kind of hokey at this point, but
like they talked about it, the storylines and the fact that we care about these kids and that there's such parallels between their own inner struggles and it's not just gore and killing. It's got a real base. It's got a real emotional base, and you care about these people.
And in fact, it takes a while to even get to the gore, which I think is part of what makes it so good. You're attached to these characters before they depart the world.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoyed it, and I thought each individual, how they had each individual struggle for each kid sort of came out in the way that they were murdered, which is kind of cool. And just one of my favorite one-liners in any horror film. Here's your big break in TV, bitch. Which is great, right?
Right after Zsa Zsa Gabor gets knifed on television.
It's freaking great, man. Yeah, this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Dream Warriors, kind of different for us, but why not, right?
Yeah, and people can watch it. It's on Netflix right now, so they can find it easy.
And thanks for listening.
Music by Denny Nucci. Produced and edited by the same 2 people you heard hosting this show because they have no friends.